Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something absolutely incredible. We have a DopePope model, and it has been a minute since I had one of his, just standard unpainted models here on the channel, and I am so psyched to have this one because as you can see, we have the Skullcrawler. Now, you may be thinking, if you're not familiar with him anyway, who is DopePope? Well, DopePope is by far one of the greatest sculptors in the world, especially when it comes to kaiju. If you are unfamiliar with him, check this out. So that is quite a few different models that he has sculpted out. In fact, he has many more than that. He's actually been working with many different companies over the years, like Seismic Toys, as well as one that I promote here on the channel very often, which would be Titanic Creations. He's even designed a kaiju for the film Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, which would be Tiamat. And as you can see, he has also sculpted this incredible Skullcrawler, and this thing looks absolutely as drop-dead gorgeous as a Skullcrawler could possibly get. And it's actually really quite large, too. Like, that's a very cool aspect of this. I have a few, like, the Hiya toys and, the Playmates and stuff when it comes to, like, the Skullcrawlers, but I have never seen a Skullcrawler nearly as impressive as this one. So I'm going to go ahead, readjust the camera here, and take a look at this very large and very impressive Skullcrawler model. Now, this did come to me unpainted. I had to paint this one myself, so hopefully my paintwork has done it justice, but you can see, starting here in the head sculpt, when my camera decides to focus, the head sculpt is extremely well done when it comes to the detailing aspect. The sculpt has all sorts of very impressive skin texture, but specifically here in the face, it has that kind of like skull sort of a look to it. Again, hence the Skullcrawler name. You can see that it does have that sort of look to it, and he has sculpted out the texture in that way very, very nicely. Honestly, I would say perfectly. I apologize if it's a little awkward because it is so big. It's kind of hard to move it around, but you can see again the actual texturing to that is really nicely done, and I tried my best to apply the coloration in the same way that we see the Skullcrawler at the finale of Kong Skull Island, and that's the one that I was, of course, trying to replicate with this version. And although you could basically make this any version of the Skullcrawler you would like, I feel like that's the one that DopePope was probably intending on this one being. But we'll get to that point here in just a little bit. You can see the mouth of the Skullcrawler is sculpted in an open position. We can see the tongue sticking out here again where it has like those three little endings to it. Very nicely sculpted. The texturing all throughout the course of the inside of the mouth and the tongue is really well done. It's going to be a little hard to get up in there because, again, the mouth doesn't open, so it's hard to really see exactly what's going on in there. But you can see the fine detail looks excellent inside the mouth. And you, of course, also have all of those very erratic and kaiju-like teeth that we have in here. Again, the teeth are all over the place when it comes to this one. I tried to give them, kind of a little bit of a dirty-like look, making the entire inside of the mouth look hopefully as realistic as I could possibly get it. But the teeth look really nice. They're nice and sharp, and you can see all of those extra teeth. They're up there on the upper jaw, which is the one thing that I complained about when it came to the Hiya Toys release, is the lack of the teeth on the upper jaw as well, but luckily DopePope has captured that aspect perfectly with his version. And of course, you can see the head sculpt over here on the other side is absolutely incredible. The eye area as well is nicely sculpted. And as you move back here into the body a little bit further, you start to pick up the very nice looking skin texture of our insane Skullcrawler. As you move up here to the top, we continue to have kind of like the bone structure kind of sticking out. Basically, you see the spinal column as well as, you know, some of like the rib cage and the shoulder blade and all sorts of different, you know, areas of the bone structure of our kaiju kind of showing within the skin, and DopePope has perfectly sculpted that out as you move through the entire figure. And another thing that's really cool that you'll see on top of the absolutely fantastic sculpting of the skin is you'll see injuries throughout the course of the figure. And I did paint some of them out to look like they are current injuries. I also painted some out to look like they're scars and painted some out to look like they're injuries, but not all that recent, you know, stuff that's starting to heal. And I would expect a kaiju like this to definitely be sustaining quite a few injuries, you know, so I tried to capture that aspect as well. As you move out here into the, I guess you would call the leg of our insane Skullcrawler, you can see the musculature is very nicely sculpted out. We can even see the skin stretching here basically from like the neck area down into the upper part of the leg. As you move back, you do have that very cool spike here on the elbow area, and then you have almost like a scoot-like appearance that moves down along the outside of the leg as you lead down. And again, all of the texturing in that area is fantastic throughout the course of the figure. And then you move down into the foot sculpt, and you can see the fingers or toes or whatever you'd like to call them are sculpted really nicely down here. The texturing as well in this area is very vibrant. Like in general, the entire model is extremely high quality when it comes to the print quality of DopePope. So that's something that's definitely great in the grand scheme of things. If you do get one of his models, you will get a very high quality model, and obviously that makes it even easier, focus camera, easier to paint because the detail just pops so nicely. And we can see the claws as well are sculpted beautifully. They as well have a very nice genuine sharp look to them, just like the teeth did, so that's also a massive plus. Lots of realism when it comes to this model. And as we move up, one thing that's really cool is right here, my camera doesn't want to focus, there we go, you can see all sorts of like little bullet holes on the side of this one. And this is one of the reasons why I would say that this is definitely like the ending of Kong Skull Island version of the Skullcrawler, because at one point they are like shooting the living bejesus out of this Skullcrawler with a massive gun, and you can see a bunch of bullet wounds over here, and I've painted those out as well, kind of glossed them up to look like they're bleeding. You see another injury right here. But we continue to again just see how insanely impressive the actual texturing to the skin of this Skullcrawler is as you move through the body. DopePope is beyond one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive sculptor. Definitely the most impressive when it comes to kaiju, no doubt about that. As you move down to the underside as well, actually you see all sorts of wrinkling and folding in the skin, as well as the throat itself moving down along the underside of our Skullcrawler. But as you move up, you could see another injury that I've painted out right here on the upper part of the arm. You could see another one up here on the top by the spine, and there's technically another one right here, but I left that one to kind of look more like a scar rather than an actual injury. As you move down, again, you can really get a good sense of the muscle definition all throughout the course of this Skullcrawler. Not only is it a massive creature, it's also very strong, and you can see it not just in the upper part of the arm or leg or whatever you want to call that, but also leading back into the body. Like, it's a very strong kaiju. And again, the skin texture continues to look beyond impressive the entire way through. As you move out here again into the limb, you can see that spike leading off of the elbow yet again, and again that sort of scoot-like appearance moving down the outer edge of the arm. And then as we move down into the foot sculpt or hand or whatever, again over here, just like we saw on the other side, the fingers and everything are sculpted beautifully, as well as the claws. And I tried my best, like I said, to paint it in a very realistic way and tried to capture the look of kind of being like a little bit dirty and dusty throughout. So hopefully I've achieved that with my paint work. You can see the back as well is just as highly detailed as we see in the front. So no matter where you look, it is crazy impressive. As you move up, you can see another injury. This one I painted out to look like one that's kind of healing. It's, you know, not really bloody anymore. So I tried to make sure that it doesn't just look like it's all the same thing, although this did just end up finishing a fight with, well, actually it's still in the process technically if we're looking at it as the point where it's being shot, but it's in the process of fighting Kong, so you know, it's going to have quite a few current injuries. But as you continue to move along the back, you still see the spinal column. As you lead down into the tail, the spinal column starts to kind of like return back into the skin. You don't see it so much, and then you have almost like a snake-like tail as you lead out the rest of the way here. And again, you can see when it comes to the fine detail of this, it is absolutely magnificent. The fine detail is beyond phenomenal. There's another older injury apparently that I sculpted out, kind of making it look like it's healing. But as you move back here, you can see again that we've got this really nice curve to the tail. As you lead back, it curves all the way around and actually heads back toward the front of our Skullcrawler. And we do have that very unique ending here to the tail of the Skullcrawler. And I think that as well looks really impressive when it comes to the actual texturing, like when you get close. It is so nice. There's so many like small cracks and crevices throughout the skin of this figure. It's truly unreal to actually see in person. And again, the size is just massive. And as you move back through the tail, you can see a few more injuries and stuff as you lead along, as well as, again, that really nice curve. You can even see the twisting in the skin showing off that curve to the tail as you lead out, and then you lead back up there toward the body. And if you head down here to the underside, of course you're going to have these holes on the underside. You won't see those, of course, once you're displaying it because it sits like this, but that's to help the resin cure and stuff. But as you move along the underside of the figure, you can again see how absolutely incredible all of the fine detail is, as well as all of that musculature, again showing off, like I said, just how strong this gigantic Skullcrawler is. So without a shadow of a doubt, that is the single most epic Skullcrawler that I have in my collection. As far as a size goes, it's, like I mentioned, very, very large. It's not going to have much in the way of a length, though, technically, because the body's curved so long. If that tail were stretched out, it would be super long. Well, even still, you'll see it come in at about 13 inches or 33 centimeters from the curve in the tail to the tip of the snout, and the highest point would be the spine at around 5 3/4 inches or about 14.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our massive DopePope Skullcrawler, and here you can really see again the massive difference in size. Obviously, this is one very large Skullcrawler. Now here we have the Hiya Toys version of the Skullcrawler next to the DopePope version, and you can see such a huge difference in size. Obviously, the DopePope version is gigantic next to the Hiya Toys release. So if you do have the Hiya version of the Skullcrawler, I feel like you'll really appreciate having this DopePope version, because again, it is just beyond the most impressive Skullcrawler I've ever seen, and so much larger and more impressive, and just has so much more of a presence to it than the Hiya Toys version. Then just a few random kaiju comparisons. Here we have a Playmates Godzilla, which you can see is definitely a whole lot smaller. An SH Monster Arts Godzilla, which as well is significantly smaller than the Skullcrawler. And then one of the larger Godzillas that I have, and the one that started my Hiya Toys love, we have the King of the Monsters Hiya Toys Godzilla, which definitely would have a very tough time trying to defend itself against such a massive Skullcrawler. So every single time I get a DopePope model, I am floored with just how incredible they are. I've had now kaiju from him, I've had dinosaurs, and every single time when I open the box, I am just in awe at how incredible they are. And it's exactly the same case with this insane Skullcrawler, and I know I've said that numerous times throughout the review, labeling this as insane, but that's truly what it is. Like, I really feel like this one, it just needs to be held in your hands to truly appreciate how incredible this model is as a whole. He knocked this one out of the park in a big way when it comes to, you know, absolutely capturing the accuracy of what we see on screen. It is as picture perfect as it could possibly get when it comes to its appearance and the way that I remember it on screen And of course, I actually just recently rewatched the entire scene at the ending of the film so that I can again capture the coloration and paint job of the Skullcrawler for my version here. So it's definitely as picture perfect as it gets when it comes to its sculpt. And the skin texture and fine detail is as highly detailed as you are ever going to find. The fine detail of DopePope honestly is unmatched. I don't know of anybody that can sculpt skin texture out as impressively as he can, and this thing is as highly detailed from head to tail as you are ever going to find for a Skullcrawler. It's also got a really nice pose. The tail curving around means it's not going to take up a disgusting amount of room on your shelf while still giving you a very large Skullcrawler. I also like the look of it with its feet planted there as it's very much so ready to fight, and the mouth open, sticking out that very interesting tongue, which is again a trademark of this very cool kaiju. So he's captured everything that you would want to see, I think, when it comes to the pose and appearance of this one. Hopefully my paintwork has done this justice. I'm actually pretty happy with it. I think it for the most part looks good and looks as it does on screen. It's a little hard to get a perfect idea of the coloration of it because it just moves so much and there's not that much material out there, when it comes to the overall body to really get a good feel for exactly how the colors work. So hopefully my paintwork turned out okay. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with it. And as I had shown off in the earlier part of the review, you saw a whole bunch of other models that DopePope has made. Well, you can actually contact him right now and order any of those models. So that's the great thing about DopePope. He has a massive amount of stuff that you can look into purchasing and acquiring for yourself or for whoever you want. If you have a kaiju fan that you want to give a incredible kaiju model to for Christmas, he's the guy to go to because he has pretty much every kaiju you could possibly want that he has sculpted at one time or another. So check the links in the description. Head on over there, contact DopePope or just grab yourself some of his incredible models and get them shipped over to you as soon as possible. Get them into your collection, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.